Empire.
Welcome to Inside the Cap. I'm your host, Joel Corey. You can find me on X at CORRYJOEL. You can also read my regular CBSSports.com column, Agents Take on NFL, Salary Cap, and Contract Matters. Today we're going to take a look at the solution to Chris Jones's holdout. Chris Jones ended a 51-day holdout on Monday by signing a reworked contract, which does not result in a contract extension. 2023 is still the last year of his contract. Now, he held out of 44 days of training camp. Training camp ran from July 22nd, the day that the Chiefs had to report, until September 3rd under the CBA in terms of fine purposes, and at a $50,000 per day fine that could not be waived or reduced or forgiven. That's $2.2 million that cost Jones. He missed 3 days of minicamp, and that was $98,753. He gave up his $500,000 workout bonus and 1 week's salary. He was scheduled to make $19.5 million as a base salary. So 1/18th of that, it's an 18-week regular season, was $1,083,333. So the grand total of money that Chris Jones lost through the holdout, if you add up these four different components, $3,882,086. Now, the $50,000 workout bonus and the minicamp fine, those two things minor in comparison, because that's $598,753. I'd consider that the cost of trying to get a contract done if he had not have gone through this holdout, which to me was a surprise just because of the daily fine. Now, Chris Jones's new contract, the listed base salary for the 2023 season is $19,499,900. There technically are 24, 25, 26, and 27 contract years, each at $40 million apiece. Now, it'd been reported that there were incentives in the contract which could boost his compensation into the $25 million per year neighborhood. Yes, that is true, but they're not incentives. Had they been incentives, then because this contract's being renegotiated after the regular season, they'd all be likely to be earned. So there's a way, the workaround that was to put the incentives in an option bonus. There is a $100 option payment that must be made during a period between 1 day following the Super Bowl, which would be February 12th, and no later than 7 days following the Super Bowl, which would be the 19th of February. And if they pick up the option, then that's to exercise a 2028 option year for $40 million. Now, those incentives that had been discussed all over the internet and reported will escalate the option bonus. Now, to recap, for his playtime in weeks 2 through 18, that's if it's 35% or more, hits 35% mark, he gets $1 million, gets another $1 million for reaching 50%. So it's not playtime for the season, it's for the last 17 weeks of the season. He had that that incentive for 10 sacks of $1.25 million. That's now part of the escalator. That stays. Then he has another $500 for $500,000. Then there's being first team All-Pro and the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. That's $1 million. And then there's defensive player of the year and a Super Bowl win, that's another $2 million. So the most that the option payment can be is $6.75 million. Now, the option payment, since it's happening in the 2023 league year, and all these incentives, whether earned or not, are considered likely. So the max amount of the option bonus, which is $6.751 million, is a cap charge and gets prorated over those 5 years. So you're going to take that $6.751 million, divide that by 5. That's going to count $1,350,200 on the cap for each of those years. Then there's also what's called a non-exercise provision, where if they don't extend the contract for the 2028 year and he's still on the roster the 8th day following the Super Bowl, that's going to be on the 20th, the 8th day following the Super Bowl. It should be the 19th. The 18th is the 7th day. So if he's on the roster the 19th of February, then they still have to pay the amount of what the option bonus would be. It's now non-exercise fee instead of an option bonus payment. So there's no way around making that payment. Then the 2024, 25, 26, 27, and 2028 league years, presumably they're going to exercise the option. If he's on the roster 10 days following the Super Bowl, which would be the 21st of February next year, they all void. So assuming they pick up the option or not, they're still going to have a $5,400,800 cap hit in 2024 before even sticking a franchise tag on Chris Jones. He could still be free, but they still have the right to franchise him. If you have a contract that voids before the end of the franchise designation period, the franchise designation period, always in the CBA, starts on the 22nd day before the upcoming league year and ends 8 days prior to the start of the upcoming league year, the 2024, which will be the 2024 league year. This year, the franchise tag period runs from February 20th to March 5th. Contract voids on the 21st, so they can stick a franchise tag on him. Now, what is this franchise tag number going to be? Well, you're working off of how much his base salary is going to be this year, what he can make. You're going to take a prorated amount of the $19,499,900. He's going to make 17/18 of base salary. That's 94.44% of that. So that means the base salary for franchise to put in the franchise tag formula is going to be $18,416,572. Now, you already had going into this year $7,041,668 of proration. You add that extra 1.35 from the option payment, and you're going to have the proration reach $8,391,668. So before you apply the 120% rule, because he's going to be 120% of his prior year salary, not what's going to come from the formula, because it's the greater of those two numbers. And me, when I'm figuring out the formula, I'm getting the defensive tackle number to be 8.656% of the cap, the 2024 cap, which we don't know what it is. Conservatively, it could be $245 million. That's very conservative. $245 million would be basically a 9% increase. So we'll say $245. And if you go off of $245, then it's $21.207 million. And you're working off of $26,808,260 before you add the 20% increase. That's what's considered Chris Jones's prior year salary. 20% increase puts his franchise tag number at $32,400,000 $169,012. Now, pretty high franchise tag. Well, the biggest franchise tag for someone who doesn't throw the football, a non-quarterback, was DeMarcus Lawrence. It's the largest number someone's ever been designated. It was a second franchise tag by Dallas. He's getting a tag in 2018, getting a tag in 2019. That was $20,571,610. That was the largest franchise tag to date for a non-quarterback. If you throw out that second franchise tag that Dak Prescott made the Cowboys burn in 2021, made them formally execute it, knowing they were getting a deal done, so it was irrelevant. That number was going to be $37,690,800. That's technically the largest franchise tag there's ever been on a player. There's only been one franchise tag figure that is larger that a player has gotten that's been larger than what it will cost the Chiefs to put a franchise tag on Chris Jones next year. That was Lamar Jackson this year, quarterback, $32.416 million, and they went the cheap version. They didn't go the exclusive version. They went the non-exclusive version. So either way, whether you go exclusive or non-exclusive, because the non-exclusive franchise tag can never be lower than the exclusive tag, it's going to be $32,169,912. Now, what I'm unsure of is how option payment factors into the equation. But that's the base value of a franchise tag next year for Chris Jones. Now, in terms of his holdout, seems like in hindsight, should have just held in if he was going to do something. Because if you look at it, if he hits all of the escalator, and that's tough. And one thing I'm curious about, since it was going to be considered likely to be earned, why do you need the Super Bowl appearance tied to the All-Pro? Should have been standalone All-Pro. I'm nitpicking. And he's never been Defensive Player of the Year. He's only been first-team All-Pro once in his career last year. Never been Defensive Player of the Year. You don't need to tie that to the Super Bowl either. So that $3 million should have been a little bit easier to make. It's going to be tough anyway. Let's look at the sack incentives. He's had 10 sacks twice in his career. Each time he's gone over 10, he's gone over 15. He's done that twice in his career. I consider the 10 sacks for 1.25 achievable. 15, that's tough to go back-to-back 15. If he gets 15 in 2 years in a row, he's great shape for whatever happens next year. As long as he stays healthy, knock on wood, as we saw in the Monday night game, injuries happen. No one expected Aaron Rodgers on the fourth play of the game tears Achilles and potentially end his career. I say potentially because I don't expect him to go out like this. I expect him to come back and play, but he's out for the season. So if Chris Jones stays healthy, he's going to hit the first two thresholds for this escalator, so he's going to earn $2 million for the 35% play time and the 50% play time. That's $2 million. That's essentially coming close to wiping out the fines. And the 1 week of salary he missed, if he can get to the $1.25 million for 10 sacks, he's essentially taking care of the fines and what he lost in base salary. I'm going to consider, as I said earlier, the workout bonus and the mini camp fine is just the cost of trying to get the contract. But he essentially would be made whole if he hits those three. The most he can make out of this deal is $25,166,672. Now, you subtract that from fines, and by that I'm going to include the $598,753 for the workout bonus and mini camp. Most he can net out is $21,284,586. So if you look at it from the standpoint he was scheduled to make 20 in this contract this year, including the workout bonus, not 19.5, just the base salary. He's going to be up if he hits everything, which I don't think is possible. $1,284,586. Most likely, he's not going to hit that final 3 million. So he's going to make essentially $19,284,586, which puts him in the hole a little bit. How you interpret the mini can't find and the workout bonus, and I call it a cost doing business, so you could really say he's at break even because you were always going to lose those in an attempt to get a contract. Holdout, the hold in would have been better. You save yourself the $50,000 per day fine. You don't do anything really except go to meetings. You're there, and you play week 1, so you're not out the almost 1-1 in the game check. Then you don't do this deal, and you're same place you were had you done nothing when you just table discussions. Now, he made it seem like everything was really amicable when he was talking to the media, that he still wants to be a chief. It was nothing personal. So a very mature public outlet on the whole holdout. I think there are a couple things you got to remember about a holdout. The agent works for the player, not the other way around. That was my experience from being through a couple of lengthy holdouts. One with Keenan McCardell, which went to the regular season up until the trading deadline, that we gave him all the information and all the reasons why you shouldn't do a holdout, but he was determined to hold out, so it was up to us to try to execute a strategy and make the most of the situation. We couldn't get paid, but we shifted gears to want to get traded, and ultimately did get traded, so we did accomplish our secondary objective, getting traded to the Chargers at the trading deadline, and then got a contract right after the season. So I don't know who was the engine driving this train, but it may not have been the Katz brothers forcing Chris Jones into a holdout. I don't think you can hold out until the regular season and it just be the agent's idea. A player has to be very committed and invest in the process for him to miss 51 days and give up the amount of money Chris Jones did for a holdout. And then something else I was trying to figure out was this holdout almost a necessity based on the offers? Well, we had the report from Mike Florio a couple of weeks ago that kind of conflated what, at least in my mind, what I thought the offers were, because he was really looking for $84.5 million over 3 years, including this year. So if you subtract it out, that's a two-year extension at $32.5 million. And the Chiefs were at 74 over 3 years, so meaning it would run through 2025. Subtract out the 19.5 left on the base salary, then you were talking $54.5 million over 2 years. I did some digging according to someone who had some knowledge with the negotiations, so I'm not going to reveal. They said that the new money from the Chiefs never got above it was a little above Quentin Williams. Didn't tell me how many years. And that Jones was, if he'd gotten somewhere above the midpoint of Quentin Williams and Aaron Donald, which in Donald's deal, which was unusual, he had 3 years left on his contract. They just ripped it up and gave him a new deal, $95 million over 3 years, so the average is $31,166,666. You got somewhere around the midpoint, which would be about $28 million. You could have gotten something done. Now, since I was told the new money average isn't much more above Quentin Williams at $24 million, and it didn't get to 25, that kind of explains, if my source is right, why you had the holdout. Because if you aren't getting to $25 million per year in new money, you're not getting a deal done. And if my source is right, and Chris Jones would have taken $28 million per year in new money, then he's being more reasonable than the Chiefs, and the Chiefs' arrogance in a contract comes from the fact that everything's worked out well for them anytime they've had a contract situation, particularly with high-profile players. Trade away Tyreek Hill instead of paying him, win a Super Bowl. Get Patrick Mahomes to sign a contract which definitely isn't going to maximize his career earnings. 10-year extension at $450 million. Maxes out at $475 million through the incentives. And you get Travis Kelce to sign a very backloaded extension when he had 2 years left on his contract. So I can see why the Chiefs were thinking we didn't need to do anything. Move heaven and earth, and we'll stick to our guns on an offer. I get that. That's quite understandable given how things have worked out for them. This only gets worse next year to me if you're trying to get a deal done, provided he plays well, and he's 29 heading on 30. That's not going to be too old to get paid, in my opinion. He goes out, and even if he has the Chris Jones year where he's like 9, 10, 11 sacks, he's Pro Bowler, not a first-team All-Pro like last year, it's going to be fine. Someone's going to pay him probably what he would have settled for in the $28 million per year neighborhood. He goes out and he's what he does last year. Yeah, that's going to be tough to try to work a deal. Even though he will be 30 next July 3rd. I say that it's not going to be a problem because I represented John Randall as his co-agent, and he was 30. He had 15 and a half sacks. Then goes out and becomes the highest paid defensive player when he's a transition player by the Vikings. We simultaneously negotiated with the Vikings, didn't sign an offer sheet with Miami, and got a deal done. The $6.5 million under that salary cap, which was $52.388 million. You adjust that to cap inflation for the $224.8 million cap there is today. That puts you at almost $28 million per year. And that was for someone who was going to turn 31 at the tail end of the first season of his contract. So I'm not looking at being 30 as a kiss of death for Chris Jones. So there's still going to be a big payday for Chris Jones. And plus Aaron Donald's 31 when he got his contract done last year. Now, there is an interesting wrinkle that could end up affecting Chris Jones's franchise tag value. Now, Chiefs did include automatic conversion rights in this contract. So that means at any time this year, if they wanted to convert part of his base salary into signing bonus, they can. Now, how this gets relevant is because of a question I asked today, having Jones in mind when I knew that the contract had conversion rights, and it relates to Kirk Cousins. Now, Cousins is in the final year of his contract, but heading into this year, he had dummy voiding 24 and 2025 contract years that automatically voided the 23rd day prior to the start of the 2024 league year, which would be February 19th. Franchise tag period starts February 20th. That remained when he did a salary conversion this year. And Cousins lowered his cap number from $36.25 million to $20.25 million with salary conversion. So my question was, for the increase over prior year's salary, are we working off of the original 2023 cap number or the converted one? I was told the converted one, even though you got those voiding dummy years. So to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding this, I was like, okay, so this would be his third franchise tag. So it'd be 144% off of the 20.25. And I got yes. So that means, hypothetically, and I don't know if it'll ever happen, let's say the Chiefs, after this week, wanted to convert all of Chris Jones's salary into signing bonus. They could, leaving him with a base salary of a shade over 1.035 million, and they'd be converting almost 16.3 into signing bonus. If you do that, then you're going to have 13 million. You're going to create 13,038,550 cap space, which would become part of the $5.4 million cap charge. That's the downside for when everything voids. So then you'd have $18,538,550 sitting as a separate set cap charge in addition to a franchise tag for Chris Jones. Then you'd fall into the formula amount. So you're talking 21.207, plus you have the 18.4 sitting there. So combined cap charge for Chris Jones between the tag and the dead money, you're talking like 39.6 million. That's why you wouldn't go to that extreme. So that'd be the downside of that, but that does exist as a possibility. Now, I suspect that you might be better off leaving it alone, because right now you're talking base 32.17 plus 5.4. You'd have less overall cap charges this way with the higher tag number. But there isn't anything precluding a deal from getting done this year. It can still get done, although Chris Jones said that he'd prefer not to talk about it during the season. There isn't anything precluding a contract from getting done between now and when you'd have to franchise him. I'm not ruling out a tag and trade, that you stick a franchise tag on him, and even though he says he wants to still stay with the Chiefs, that the Chiefs certainly, I have a hard time seeing them have him walk out the door for just compensatory third-round pick in 2025. You can still do a tag and trade, but if you're going to try to do a deal, I assume it's gotten harder, because you didn't have Nick Bosa in the equation when most of these negotiations were going on. Aaron Donald was the highest paid non-quarterback. Now it's Chris Jones. So he wanted supposedly $30 million per year, was willing to settle for 28. The cap's going to go up. If you adjust what he wanted this year by cap inflation, we'll say conservatively that he was really looking for 30, and you adjust that by cap inflation, he's going to be looking for like 30, almost 33 million per year. So postponing it, delaying, makes it even hard. Probably makes it harder to get a deal done if he plays well. Maybe it's kind of softened both sides from their positions, because I think both sides underestimated the resolve of the other side. So maybe they'll both approach this like the Chiefs will be, well, we really want this guy. We better make a push higher than a lot higher than where we were, and get closer to that amount he's willing to settle for. But as an agent, I found out that if we played well, whatever we asked for the previous year, if negotiation dragged on, that's obsolete, and that's no longer available. So this thing will be continued. Hopefully Chris Jones has a good season, and we'll go from there. Now, just to recap, Chris Jones is still playing on the one-year deal. Base salary was essentially unchanged. He doesn't make up the game check initially. He's going to make $18.416 million basically in base salary this year. He can max out at basically $25.16 million if he hits all the incentives, which went into this option bonus to pick up a 2028 contract year. There are voiding 24 through 27 contract years that void 10th day of the league year, 10 days after the Super Bowl, I should say, which would be February 21st. Chris Jones can still be franchised next year, barring any type of conversions. It's going to be $32,169,912 to franchise Chris Jones in 2024. That would be Easily, by far, the highest franchise tag for a non-quarterback, and would be the second highest franchise tag that potentially someone would have played on, behind Lamar Jackson's $32.416 million ever. Remains to be seen whether they do franchise him, but this Chris Jones saga is to be continued. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, you can find me on X at CORRYJOEL, and also read my regular CBSSports.com agent's take on NFL salary cap and contract matters. We'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.